Hello there, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views report on the politics of the European Union. After Brexit in 2020, there are still many regulations to be made between the EU and Great Britain, and that is definitely not an easy task. The Conservative British government has met with severe criticism with its plan to radically abolish all standards and regulations adopted from the EU. And they now want to do it after Brexit. Not only opposition and environmental organizations, but also members of their own Tory party warn of drastic consequences. The corresponding legislative package, the retained EU law bill, was on the agenda in the British House of Commons on Wednesday. After that, it is the turn of the House of Lords, where resistance is also expected. According to the plans, thousands of laws, regulations and standards that were adopted from EU times and now after Brexit are to expire by the end of the year. The Labour Party proposes extending the deadline to 2026 to protect workers' rights. The opposition party has also tabled amendments on various issues, including regulations on toy safety, animal transport and the treatment of part-time workers. So far, the government has identified 2,400 EU laws that have been adopted, according to a BBC report. According to official estimates, around 1,000 new laws would have to be passed to regulate all those fields. Conservative Brexit supporter David fears that the law would overly strengthen the government and weaken Parliament. The aim of the Brexiteers was to give power to Westminster, not Whitehall. That's what he told the BBC, referring to the seat of various government institutions. Environmental organizations fear a significant weakening of environmental standards and nature conservation as a result of the government plans, for example, with regard to water quality, air pollution, chemicals, or energy efficiency. Following allegations of corruption against Eva Kaili, the EU Parliament has named her successor, and it's a politician from Luxembourg. The EU Parliament has elected a Luxembourg Social Democrat to succeed Eva Kaili as Deputy or Vice President of the Parliament, who was dismissed due to corruption allegations. A majority of MEPs voted in Strasbourg on Wednesday for Marc as the new Vice President of the European Parliament. He belongs to the same faction as Kaili before she was expelled from the party family. Angel was one of three candidates. The French Gwendoline Delbourg-Corfield ran for the Greens and the Italian Annalisa Tardino for the right-wing populist ID faction. In Kaili's place, Angel will now be one of the 14 vice presidents of the parliament. He has been an MEP since 2019. The European Parliament dismissed Kaili with an overwhelming majority in December, shortly after allegations of corruption against her and other suspects became known. The Greek politician and three other suspects are accused of money laundering and corruption. The Gulf state of Qatar and Morocco are said to have tried to influence decisions in the European Parliament, and both countries, of course, reject this. The EU Parliament passed a resolution on Thursday in which MEPs are in favor of putting the Iranian Revolutionary Guard on the EU terror list. That's what MEP Hannah Neumann reported on Twitter. The decision for the resolution was made with an overwhelming majority, according to Neumann. The MEPs justify their call for the Revolutionary Guards to be included on the terrorist list with the delivery of Iranian drones to Russia in the war of aggression against Ukraine. Parliament's request is not binding on EU countries. They want to decide on tougher sanctions against Iran at the foreign ministers' meeting in Brussels this week. Iranians in exile have been demanding the move for months. The Revolutionary Guards are considered an elite unit in Iran and one of the most powerful entities of the Islamic regime. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian warned EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell about the move during a phone call. That's what his ministry said. The EU would harm itself by doing so, he said. Meanwhile, the internet was again restricted in Iran. The authorities justified the 2-day bans that were planned to start on Thursday with an examination phase. Entrance exams for the universities are pending, and concerns are there about possible fraud, as they claim. Residents of the capital Tehran confirmed massive restrictions on Thursday morning, which also affected online transfers. At the same time, some protest organizations called for new demonstrations. Again and again, Iran restricts the internet before protests. At the same time as the current internet restrictions, the Revolutionary Guards are to besiege the southeastern city of Zaidan, that was reported by the documentation network 1500 Tasvi on Twitter, among others. Accordingly, all access roads were blocked and checkpoints set up. Zaidan is the capital of the province of Sistan and Balochistan, home to the long-oppressed Baloch ethnic minority. According to 1500 Tasvir, dozens of people have also been arrested in the city in recent days. Recently, the street demonstrations in Iran had decreased again. Many opponents of the system are now expressing their protest against the repressive course of the government and the Islamic system of rule through civil disobedience, such as ignoring the compulsory headscarf. The trigger for the nationwide protests was the death of the Iranian Kurd Gina Mahsa Amini in police custody mid-September 2022. She had been arrested by the so-called vice police for violating Islamic dress codes. EU Parliament President Roberta Metsola has received around 140 gifts since the beginning of last year. The top politician disclosed the information on the website of the European Parliament. The President accepts gifts on behalf of the institution. She does not keep them, said a spokesman for Metsola when asked by the German press agency. According to the information, the gifts include a scarf, books, and wine. According to Parliament's internal rules, gifts should actually be reported by the last day of the month following receipt at the latest. Metsola is said to have reported 125 gifts too late. Anyone who violates these rules does not have to be penalized. The Code of Conduct only stipulates that sanctions can be imposed in the event of violations. Metsola only wanted to disclose the gifts at the end of the mandate, as has been done by other presidents, said her spokesman. Now we are trying to be as transparent as possible. According to the information, the gifts were reported a week ago. In addition to Metsola, only a handful of MEPs have disclosed gifts in the relevant list since the beginning of 2020, including many Germans. Among them are the Green politician Hannah Neumann, Nicola Beer from the Liberals, as well as David McAllister and Daniel Kaspari from the CDU. German MEP Daniel Freund praised the actions of the President of Parliament. Metsola is breaking with the rule-breaking tradition of former parliamentary presidents of simply not declaring gifts. This transparency in dealing with gifts is correct, said the Green politician. The delay is a blemish. The EU Parliament has been rocked by a corruption scandal since December, and I talked about this earlier in the video. The judiciary charged, among other things, the then Vice President of Parliament Eva Kaili of participation in a criminal organization, money laundering and corruption. Europe's investments in frontier research have a significant impact on patentable technologies. This shows a new analysis of the number of patents. More than 40% of projects funded by the European Research Council, the ERC, resulted in research results that were subsequently cited in patents. The study focused on how and to what extent the discoveries described by the ERC grantees in the scientific publications inspired new technologies presented in patent applications and filed by the companies and institutions around the world. The study is based on data from 6,671 ERC-funded projects from all scientific fields, including all projects from 2007 to 16. ERC-funded projects in life sciences had the greatest impact on patents, and that is followed by projects in science and engineering. Patents linked to ERC-funded research focus on specific areas of technology. Patents in the fields of biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, computer technology, organic fine chemistry, metrology, and semiconductors together accounted for 68.2% of the total patent applications. In addition, the analysis shows that research funded by the ERC has a positive impact on technology areas whose development is crucial for tackling climate change and making the most of the digital transformation. And this concludes today's video on the politics of the European Union, but tomorrow I'll be back with the Americas. So I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.